On Apple, obviously shares dipped post earnings, but ended up 4%. I mean, I know there's concern about the iPhone, but there's also a lot of optimism about services. What do you think is the big takeaway?
Yeah, so the actual number of iPhones they sold went down a little bit compared to the year before, but the iPhone revenue went up, which means they sold, a lot of people bought the high-end iPhone, the 7S, and that bodes very well for the new iPhone coming up later this year. So from that point of view, it's good, and then you add in the services business, which means that even if you don't buy a new iPhone, you might subscribe to Apple Music, you download apps, all that type of thing, and they're making a lot of revenue on that now.
He also played up revenue from wearables, which is, the Apple Watch, AirPods, Beats. He said it's the size of a Fortune 500 company, which, by the numbers, I guess he's right. Yeah,
I mean, I would say that is, it's not a disaster. That would be my take on that. It's not doing amazingly well, but it's not going to go away, and they're still working on those types of things. The AirPods, especially, you could have a lot of new technology based off that, based on voice interactions, things like that.
Let's talk a little bit about Facebook, Eric. I mean, the biggest concern is that they're running out of space in the core app to show ads. But of course, there's Instagram, then there's WhatsApp, then there are all of these other issues about violent content and what they're doing to further police that.
They'd already said, okay, we're going to reduce the ad load and feed. Then they just reiterated on the call, and everybody freaks out about that again, even though at this point it wasn't new. So I think they're definitely trying to warn the markets about that and say we're going to calm down sort of how many ads we're putting in the feed. On the other hand, I think people are really excited about Instagram. It's sort of, even in the startup ecosystem, a place people really want to advertise. So I think that's going to absorb some of this concern. And then, like you said, video, it feels like they're still trying to figure it out.
They're not going to shy away from live video, though. I mean, they're adding 3,000 people to police it.
Right, and there was just a report in Business Insider saying they're going to do some premium stuff. So we're seeing they're committing to video, even though it definitely, as a user, doesn't feel like they figured it out, which I guess is sort of an upside potential if you want to spin in a favorable light for Facebook.
Alistair, what do you think of the potential for Facebook to succeed in original content? Everyone's doing it. Can everybody be good at it?
Well, they just actually pulled back from bidding on sports content, which is that's the best example. Like Amazon and Twitter and everyone's going crazy for sports content and paying so much. So they're not going to do that, which means they are being a little tentative. But I think that just the opportunities are just way too big, right? If you can grab a third of what YouTube does or half of what YouTube does, it will be a huge business.
So Snap is coming. What can we expect?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be this first quarter that we really get to see them as a public company, so I think it's super important. It's going to set our expectations. Are they a high-growth company or not? I think there's going to be this big debate around sort of user growth versus how well they monetize their existing users. Obviously, Snap would much prefer us say, oh man, we can really monetize these users that we have. They're super engaged, much more engaged than they would be on Facebook or Instagram, and that's what makes us valuable. We'll continue to come out with new products. Pay attention to that. Don't pay attention to the fact that we are not Facebook. We are not some huge global international business growing all over the world to the same degree. And then don't treat us like Twitter. I don't know.
Shares up 36% since the IPO. All right, let's talk about Uber. Every day, another Uber story. Now they're facing a criminal probe over this gray ball situation. What's the latest?
So we found out through the city of Portland filed this sort of extensive document that included this mention that the U.S. Justice Department was investigating Uber. And we wrote about that a couple of days ago, and people are sort of really seizing on this idea that, and so the Justice Department is looking into Grayball, which is what Uber used to sort of obscure itself from police departments, law enforcement officials, and competitors, and sort of make it hard for people to find Uber drivers. And it's called Grayball because it's where they thought they were operating in a gray area legally. So it's let's hide from them, hide our drivers so that so they don't get arrested.
Al?
Yeah, I think in general, the pattern is this is an amazing company. It's kind of won in its market, and now they're messing it all up. So you could even look at the hiring of Anthony Lewandowski. They had a great self-driving car program. Then they hired this guy who's obviously a little crazy, and they've messed it up, and a lot of people have left. I mean, they're tripping over themselves right now.
And interestingly, I mean, I've heard just anecdotally that Lyft is gaining momentum. I mean, you talk to users who say either they've deleted Uber or they start with Lyft. You talk to drivers, and most of the drivers that I talk to seem to prefer Lyft. What are we supposed to take away from that?
Yeah, I saw a bunch of Lyft people the other day, and they were like glowing. It's like they all just had weddings or something. They were very happy. So yeah, I think there's definitely that sentiment. Everyone's very happy over there, and you know, everything just keeps coming on the Uber front, and it's a lot of old stuff. It's their sort of old skeletons sort of getting dug out of the closet now that everybody's putting a lot of scrutiny on them. And so they are sort of going to have to figure out, you know, how do they overcome sort of all this history. I think part of the hope is the Holder report, a new COO, those things happen and they say, hey, stop criticizing us for obviously having made a lot of mistakes. We're a new company now. And so I think we're going to start to see that messaging of the new Uber sort of over the next couple months.
All right, Eric Newcomer, our Bloomberg Tech reporter, Alistair Barr, our Bloomberg Tech editor. Thank you both. By the way, I said that Apple shares were up 4% for the week. That was Snap. Apple shares are actually up 1.6%.